I just finished designing a 3D printable version of the Pratt & Whitney PT6, a cutaway model where things move like in the real engine. The assembly is split into 3 sections. This is section 1, let's begin. I put a lot of time and effort into creating this instruction manual for the engine. You'll find all the important info in these pages. I tried making everything as visually simple and easy to understand. So if you're not interested in me yapping, print out these instructions and you're all set. In fact, I'll be using them in these videos to make sure I don't miss anything. Let's go over a few things you should keep in mind and then assemble the first section. This model is designed for both printability and accuracy. So I tried to make it as easy as possible for you to print whilst keeping accuracy to the original of the PT6. It remains a challenging build that demands patience and attention to detail. This is not a beginner level project. I want you to take your time and really pay attention to those details. Ensure your printer is properly maintained and in good condition. On a well-maintained printer, you can expect minimal print failures. I want you to print this model on a well-maintained machine so you can expect the best results. If you do have a well-maintained printer and you do run into printing issues, please run that by me and I will try to fix it. Use a suitable glue, apply only a minimal amount to each part to avoid excess or mess. On some occasions, I'll be using super glue, and on others, I'll be using this special modeling glue I just bought on Amazon. They're both very generic. Next point, when sourcing your own bearings, keep in mind that tolerances vary with quality. The prints are optimized for high quality bearings supplied in my kits. So basically, I actually experienced this for myself whilst prototyping the engine. I used cheaper bearings off Amazon, and later on, I switched over to high quality bearings and the tolerances changed wildly. So for all the affected parts, I'll give you different tolerance versions in my print profiles. All right, let's get into the print and tool recommendations. The build is split into 3 sections. Keep each section's parts separate. As you can see, it's 3 major print profiles, and I recommend you doing the same. I put each section's prints in one of these boxes, keeping the parts separated from each other. Use my print profiles for a clear overview of all parts and sections. The print profiles are tuned for a 3-color setup to reduce complexity and still look great. This just comes back to the boxes, separate the sections, and obviously you can do whatever color or material setup you want. For the print profiles, I went for a 3-color build to keep it somewhat simple and still look pretty cool. No AMS is required except for the 2-color engine plaque. This is pretty simple. The only part printed in 2 colors is the engine plaque because of the text and the logo. If you don't have an AMS, actually maybe I'll make an indented version so you can paint it by yourself, or you just leave it away. All right, next point. This one is really important. I really want you to hone in on this one. Let the parts cool off properly before removing from the build plate and taking off supports. Basically, after printing, don't rip the parts straight off the build plate. And before taking off the supports in general, let the parts cool down all the way to room temp. This just makes it so much cleaner. You'll have way less work removing any leftover supports on the build. For best results, use a separate filament for support interfaces. If not, remove supports carefully with flush cutters or a hobby knife. Be meticulous, like really meticulous with taking off all the supports left behind. Sometimes there's a few strings just left on there. Make sure to remove everything. All right, next point. You need a driver with an H2 hex bit, something to hold on to the nuts, and glue. We talked about the glue. For the driver, I'm using an unreleased project of mine. By the time you watch this might actually be released, so keep an eye out for that. It's a pretty cool project. So for holding on to the nuts, I actually designed this wrench. You can grab it on my profile. It's perfect for this build or any other engine builds in the future. Quick disclaimer, this is for holding on to the nuts, not actually tightening it. Use the driver for that. Since this is just plastic, it will strip at some point. All right, that was all the important information. Next up, the BOM, the bill of materials. This is pretty straightforward hardware, a couple of bearings, screws, nuts, and washers. If you do want an easy and convenient way to source all of these parts in just one order, check out my website. I have kits available for exactly this project and you'll receive exactly what you need. You'll be supporting me and my small business, and I'll be able to pump out more projects like these. But of course, it's about the engine. I want as many people as possible to have access to this build. That's why I put it online for free, and you can source your hardware wherever you'd like. Quick tip on parts like these that may have unwanted stringing, use a heat gun to get rid of it. I was skeptical myself in the beginning, but this really works well. Obviously, just do short passes because you don't want your prints to melt, right? All right, let's finally begin with section 1. All right, let's grab the parts of our first section and make sure everything is there. So I made this cool graphic where you can check if you have all the parts. And now let's jump right in with step number 1. We'll need 4 608 bearings and the cheese plate. Why did I call it cheese plate? Well, it has so many holes in it and I thought it might be more distinctive than just calling it back plate or something. So cheese plate it is. Now for the 608 bearings, I'm just gonna grab them out of my kit here. So we'll be needing 4 of those right now. Okay, this is a pretty simple step. We're just gonna push our 608 bearings into the cheese plate. To make sure they're in correctly, I like turning it around and pushing on them, making sure it's flush. There we go. Also, I like to add lubricant directly. So I'm just gonna put a drop of lube in each bearing. Okay, we're gonna put this aside for now. Step number 2, we're gonna need our accessory gears, 3 of those, then 2 of these shaft elements and 1 of this longer shaft. All we're gonna do is glue these shaft elements into the gears and making sure that we use the long shaft with the gear with the holes. So that's the only thing important here. For this, I'll be using super glue, strong and quick connection. I'm just gonna add a drop in there and push on the shaft. I'm gonna hold this for a couple of seconds and then put it aside, let it cure properly, and then do the same thing with the other 2. Moving on, next page, firmly press the gears into the bearings as shown. So we're gonna take our cheese plate and the gears we just assembled. So for this step, the order of the gears plays a critical role. You can identify the top of the cheese plate by this flat edge up here. That is the top, and this hole is gonna be to the right of it. I'm just gonna start with this one right here. It goes to the left bottom bearing, so I'm just gonna firmly push that in here. Next up, we're gonna take this double-decker gear and push it into the top one. So just firmly insert that in here. And the last one is gonna be the one with the long shaft. This is the one to the right. We're gonna insert it through the bearing. It is gonna poke out the other side and just push it in like that. That's how we want it. For the next step, we're gonna grab the center gear and 3 more 608 bearings. 3 of these bearings and the center gear. We're just gonna firmly push the center gear into the center bearing and then add 3 more bearings to the other gears. Just pushing them tightly on top. Make sure to really squeeze them on so they're flush. And it should look something like this. For the next step, let's grab our gear cover and our 6003 bearing. You'll find this bearing in the other package. Just grab one of them. All right, before I push the gear cover onto the gears, I will lubricate the 608s. Now I can push on the gear cover. Make sure that the hole in the gear cover right here and in the cheese plate right here, that they line up, and then just firmly push into the bearings and insert your 6003 bearing in the top here. Add some lube and make sure everything rotates nicely. There we go. That is perfect. All right, for the next step, we're gonna grab our engagement rod and our spline. We're gonna take the engagement rod, push it through the center back, just like so. Now we're gonna add a drop of glue into the spline. Just a very, very small amount is enough. And now we're gonna push the spline onto the engagement rod. We don't want to glue the spine or the rod to the center gear. This should move in and out freely like this. That is perfect. Right, step number 7. We're gonna grab the inlet rear case, and for the first time, we're gonna grab a bunch of fasteners, which we will find in our kit. I'm just gonna dump out my fasteners real quick. It makes it easier for the next parts. So here are my screws. Here we got our nuts. I don't care too much if they get mixed up a little bit. Now we get the washers. Whoops, I lost a couple. All right. Lining this thing up correctly is crucial. Again, on the cheese plate, we have this edge right here, and the center of the edge is the very top of the engine, right? And since this is a cutaway model, this edge right here should be the center of the engine. So we're gonna attach that exactly like this. The edge right here goes through the center, and you see these holes right here line up with these pockets. So the way these work, you grab a nut, you insert the nut into one of the pockets, then you grab a screw with a washer and insert it through into the nut that is in that pocket. Okay, everything left to do is to turn the screw, and since the nut is captured inside this pocket, it will be held in place, and we will do this for all of these openings. I'll do one more with you guys. We're gonna drop in the nut, grab our screw with washer, turn the screw, and watch as it pulls itself into the nut. This is super easy and simple to do. It shouldn't take you too long. Make sure everything works, and let's move on to the next step. Okay, for the next step, we'll be needing the inlet, which is this part, 4 screws, 4 nuts, and only 2 washers. So all we're gonna do is set the inlet onto the inlet studs, these spiky points right here. There are slots in the inlet for this to slide on just like that. Now, if you have a closer look, there's holes here, 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 and here, which we can thread our fasteners through. I made it so the bolt is always sticking in the outside direction. So this bolt right here comes in like this. This one right here will come in like this. This one here comes in like this. And this one here will come in like this, right? So always pointing to the outside. Now we're gonna grab a nut, push it against our screw, and start tightening. And let's do that with the one right here. Push it through, grab a nut, hold it against the screw, and start tightening. There are small grooves in there gripping the nut, so you don't really need the nut wrench. Now for the inner 2 connections, you won't be needing any washers. Just grab your nut and insert it into this pocket right here. Keep your finger on it and push through the screw and just tighten everything down. You won't have to hold on to the nut as it is inserted into the print itself. So just tighten that, and let's do that one more time right here. Now these parts are securely connected. Now let's move on to step number 9. We can put this aside for now. We're gonna grab our compressor casing and the 4 stators. This step is relatively simple. We're just gonna grab our compressor stators and first dry fit them to make sure everything fits nicely. Insert them as shown. Now that we confirmed the fitment, we can grab our glue. For this application, I'll be using this special modeling glue as it has a much pointier tip right here. I've tried this with super glue, but I always find myself smearing the outside points here. So with this needle, I hope I can reduce that. Okay, for this, I'm gonna take all of them out again. Now I'm just gonna apply glue to the inside of these grooves. Again, if your glue is strong, you won't be needing too much of this. I'm gonna start with the smallest and insert it into like so. And I'll do this for the rest of them too. And now we're gonna put this aside and let it dry for a moment and continue on with step number 10. All right, for step number 10, we'll be grabbing the compressor shaft and the turbine shaft. We're just gonna screw these together using the same method as with the cheese plate. So we're gonna grab a screw, insert the washer, then we're gonna insert a nut into one of the pockets on the compressor shaft. and line up these grooves right here. As you can see, there's a groove running through the turbine shaft and the compressor shaft. Line those up. With the nut in the pocket, we're gonna tighten down the screw. No need to hold on to the nut as it sits in the pocket. We're gonna do this 7 more times. Let's go. Really quick, I like to do 2 opposites first to make sure everything is lined up properly. Then I don't have to worry about the rest of them anymore. Man, I just love combining prints with real hardware. It just makes it look so awesome. All right, let's move on to step number 11. For this, we're gonna need our centrifugal compressor and all of our compressor stages right here. Okay, this step is relatively simple. We're gonna take our centrifugal compressor, and if we line up the grooves, this should just slide right on. We're gonna lock it down with glue, just like that. Not much needed at all. Slide it over. There we go. Hold that in place for a couple of seconds, let it set, and then we can move on to the other stages. Since we're working with grooves here, we can simply slide on the stages. Make sure that they're in the correct order. The first compressor or the fan is the only thing we have to lock down with glue. Let's do that real quick. Now I'm just gonna add it to the compressor stage and push down on it for a couple of seconds. All right, and if everything has dried properly, we can move on to the next step. All right, for step number 12, we'll be needing the compressor and our compressor casing, as well as 2 6003 bearings. I'm just gonna grab those real quick. Okay, all we're gonna do is push the compressor into the compressor casing. Now, as you can see, this does not fit in there as is, so we're gonna have to expand the casing a little bit to push this in carefully. And if your glue is strong enough, as we're expanding, the stators should just expand with it. If not, you can just secure them afterwards again. Make sure you got the right fitment, so the first compressor sits in front of all of the stators, and then we're just gonna widen the casing a little bit. We're gonna rotate the compressor into place just like that, and now it sits inside of the compressor casing. And make sure none of the stators have come loose. Now we're gonna take our 2 bearings and add one to each end, just like that. Okay, for step number 13, we're gonna put this aside and grab our combustion lining and turbine stator. Man, this thing really turned out nice in gold metallic. I love it. So for step 13, we're just gonna add the stator into the liner like that. After we've dry fitted, we can grab our glue again and start applying as before. And now I'm just gonna add the stator like that. Any excess glue coming out the top, you wipe away carefully with a cloth or paper or whatever. And this glue already tacked it in place. I can already not move it anymore, which is great. Okay, moving on, step number 14. All we're gonna do is grab our combustion casing. Make sure to use the heat gun on the air ducts as these are prone for stringing. All we're gonna do is set the combustion liner into the casing. It is gonna sit on this edge right here. This is the only touching point of this connection. So there's gaps here, gaps here. This is the only connection point right here, which means we apply glue right here all around. Okay, apply glue all around. Now I'm just gonna take the combustion liner and place it on top, just like that. I'm gonna have it sit on the table and just adjust like that. A little bit of pressure to make sure it sits. And now I just leave it alone, let it cure properly like that. All right, let's move on to step number 15. We're only gonna need screws, nuts, and washers. And what we're gonna do is combine these 2 sections together. At this point, we can grab our M2.5 wrench and use it to tighten these screws. Just like that, and we're gonna do that all around. The way I like to insert the bolts is from front to back, so this way, and I'll keep this direction through all of the sections. Okay, step number 16, we're gonna grab our compressor turbine and simply attach it to the turbine shaft like that. If it fits on well dry, then you can add the glue. We're gonna let this cure properly. Okay, for step 17, we're gonna combine the two sections we just built using 11 of each fastener. Just as we did before, we're gonna insert our screw from front to back and tighten it down using our wrench. All right, and if you're done combining these sections, you can try out the mechanisms. So you can engage the spline and turn this shaft back here, make sure everything rotates nicely. You can disengage the spline and just rotate the accessory gears and have the compressor spin freely. Okay, that was it for section 1 of the build. I hope you didn't find it too difficult, and I'll see you in the second video for section number 2.